One of the reasons why we love Future Ready NYC is because it's inviting this opportunity that Brian's been talking about this possibility of a meaningfully different lifestyle that is empowered by a career in technology. You saw right off the beginning what the income disparity looks like from an entry-level job in sort of the general kind of capacity to what you can see in tech. But now I wanted to help you as you're a teacher or work-based learning director think about how to help your students contextualize what jobs exist in tech. When we talk about tech, there's sort of two main areas, like working at a startup or working at like a big tech or an enterprise tech company. Startups tend to be what we think about as smaller companies and teams. It could be as small as one person, like my current startup is, but anything under 500 companies is really kind of that startup mindset. If you are someone who's maybe a more self-directed student or a learner, this is like a great opportunity for you. There's higher risk, but also higher reward because you could be earning like equity, which is like a little bit of an ownership stake in the company that accrues in value over time as hopefully the company accrues in value. And it's a really cool way to become a trailblazer that's inventing new things that haven't been true before, and a really, really fun way to build out your own network in tech. If you have an interest in joining a larger company, this is maybe a place where you would get a lot more structured management, mentorship, leadership, guidance, and frameworks. So it really depends on what kind of learner you or your students are going to be and thinking about those opportunities. And what's great about the work that we're doing with Future Ready is that we have startups and we have enterprise tech companies that are participating in this program. So some of you might be placed with schools that are working or with companies that are on the smaller side, some on the larger side. And hopefully, no matter which company it is, it's just providing a data point of what it could be like to have that industry exposure. On the next slide, we can talk about some of the jobs of technology. As Brian pointed out, every company is becoming a tech company. And I would go so far as to say that every job is becoming a tech job because if the access to the internet brought us all online 20 years ago, access to AI is in a way making us all software developers without necessarily needing to code. And what I'm seeing on the ground floor today is that people like me who've never coded in a computer programming language like Python are now able to form fully functioning applications on the web or on mobile without needing to have necessarily all of the same foundational experiences as before. So what this is meaning is a lot of people today on the professional side are starting to augment their work into making it more tech job focused. And I think because of that, no matter what pathway your school is pursuing in the technology work or which pathway your students are pursuing, these are wholly versatile skills that can be seen across a wide variety of domains and interests. And versatility is the key here. This is just showing you a list of really like every type of job. And you'll notice on the right, now we're starting to see more of an interest in AI specialist jobs on top of this already really full list of job opportunities. If anyone has questions there, feel free to jump in on chat and I can keep answering. On the next slide, we have a couple of just main focus areas to help you and your students and your school really think about like what we call like a technology skill cluster. So if you're sort of gravitating towards more of the like mathy, analytical, engineering type work, that's where you're really going to want to start to pursue that like engineering package. And that's really today what Future Ready's pathways are really primed for. In addition to that, you might have an interest in more of like the marketing, design, or brand sort of cluster of skills. And there's like definitely entire career paths around that as well. And again, those career paths are now even more useful if you also have some coding skills. And then in this sort of combination of like engineering, analytical skills, and like people direction and like product design skills, there's this like product cluster. So one of the things that we're encouraging people to think about is where their natural skills and interests are sort of gravitating towards and how to use any example of an experience that you get with industry to help refine your narrative about what might be interesting for you going forward, and then how to sort of combine all those things together makes you a really powerful candidate in a tech job for entry level. You can go to the next slide. So in addition to these sort of like hard skill clusters and pockets, we're noticing in the tech side of things that it's really important because of how new this industry is and how quickly the technology is changing, particularly around these new frameworks with artificial intelligence, with machine learning, with cybersecurity. It's not enough to just have these hard skills, but you need to be able to communicate and talk with other people and collaborate in order to really bring these skills to life. So it's also really useful to have storytelling skills, the ability to not just explain what the technology does, but turn it into a pitch that is compelling for other people, go to market, distribution, sales. This is actually where things like TikTok skills become really, really useful because we need people who also know how to not just build a product, but be able to bring other people into that narrative. Things around networking are also so important to help understand how do I navigate this deeply complex job market and industry? How do I use something like a cold email or a cold LinkedIn message to get a job opportunity? How do I use the meetings and the conversations I'm having with industry professionals as a high schooler to help me get my first internship and then use those to help me get my first job down the road? These are all questions that as teachers and counselors and facilitators, we'd love for you to be encouraging your students to be thinking about as they're going through this, because these are the skills that really are vital going forward. AI training for teachers, yeah, we'd be happy to talk about that. You go to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay, so there's three primary skill paths that are part of the Future Ready NYC curriculum, and we wanted to talk through just a little bit about what entry-level jobs look like in all of those, and then we'll talk again at the end about some AI-specific nuances. So we can start with the first one here. And okay, so there's three pathways, cybersecurity, data analytics, and software engineering. The reason that these three pathways are chosen for the Future Ready curriculum is that these are the fastest growing jobs in technology right now. That's not to say that every person going through this program needs to pursue one of these domains, but having some awareness of how it works like as a software engineer or as a data analyst or as a cybersecurity professional is only going to help, not hurt your marketability. So the good news is there are no wrong answers here. These are all increasingly useful skills in the labor market today. The other good news is all of these have very similar core foundational entry-level requirements for an employer's point of view. So again, there's no wrong answer here. The important thing is that students are getting real access in these practical applications. So we'll sort of dive into what each of these domains means for now, and then you'll obviously learn a lot more about this if you end up getting matched with one of them. So the first one, let's jump in. Cybersecurity. This is a field that is becoming more and more important by the second, given how quickly AI is making us question the difference between fact versus fiction. I don't have a single hour go by without getting a spam text, email, or like LinkedIn message that might be problematic or suspicious. And we need people in our next generation to be preempting and thinking one step ahead of what these narratives are becoming when it comes to security concerns, to protect users and help us really draw a line in the sand. So these are people who are discovering these vulnerabilities and risks on the software side of networks, on working with data centers, ongoing vulnerability, monitoring this network data. And I think increasingly we'll also be thinking about the ethical considerations of how to keep these systems secure for different audiences and groups. So this is an increasingly important role. And you can see it goes all the way up and down the stack where you're seeing like chief security officers and also security interns. So it's a fantastic early career opportunity. I will say like the one thing is these teams don't tend to be as large at companies right now as like software engineering teams. So that doesn't always mean there's like as many quantity, but it is certainly something from an important standpoint that's continuing to grow and dominate the discourse.
And to add
And
just a
then,
little bit, if you don't mind, Beth,
yeah,
I was just going to say, and then contextually for New York, I know cybersecurity has just been a huge focus with both city and state government in terms of trying to provide resources for more training, access to New Yorkers. And we know there's a lot of New York is in many ways a center for a lot of consulting agencies in cybersecurity, many of which we work with on the Future Ready program. So.
Really good point. Yeah, a lot of government and policy work in cybersecurity as well. This is a basic example of a security intern job description, which I just wanted to put here so that you could sort of see the qualifications. People tend to look in internships for those who are pursuing a bachelor's degree in some CS or engineering profession, have some basic proficiency in a computer programming language. Python is the sort of in vogue one for now. Um, Interest in sort of working in these like software engineering and coding concepts, but also you're starting to see some of this like communication skills and like feedback as well. Next slide. Data analytics. Data is also becoming increasingly important by the second because of how much data people are generating on the internet. Data analysts are people who help collect, clean, and interpret data sets to help answer questions and solve problems. It's a great job. That's programmatic thinking that really spans any industry, technology and non-technology. We spent the past several months working with dozens of nonprofits all throughout New York City, and a lot of them had major questions about how to lean into the data sets that these organizations have been keeping and holding for decades. So it can include both working with legacy data sets from institutions, policies, organizations, government, to brand new data sets like large language models and net new compute capacity. Again, you're seeing here like a wide variety of where data science roles and internships could exist. And on the next slide, we're going to show you what a sample internship job description looks like for a data scientist or a data analyst. And again, you're seeing an indication of interest in something sort of CS related and that sort of qualifications. 1 year of programming experience in an object-oriented language. Again, that's just like a pretty just generic way of saying any computer programming language. And again, you're seeing this like communication skills and writing skills still be equally important here. So you're seeing these themes emerge even in these two very different types of jobs. And the third pathway is software engineer, probably the most common pathway right now. It's really referring to anyone who designs, develops, or maintains software at a company. Historically, and for most people still, software engineers are using computer coding and programming languages in order to create and deploy these applications. That is rapidly changing. So it's actually going to increase the number of people who can be software engineers, but it might decrease the number of job titles that are just software engineers, if that makes sense. In a world where anybody can make their own apps, it becomes a little bit less important to have specialist software engineers. That's like a little bit of a theory that we're starting to see emerge, but it becomes more critically important that anybody knows how to create and conceptualize and build these applications. So this job will continue to have importance. And I think if people are really, really interested in diving deep into software engineers, we're going to start to see more of a separation between like the super, super specialist software engineers that are going deep in one very, very specific area and are top of the line in their craft versus more generalist, full stack sort of software engineers who maybe can build end-to-end applications, but also spike heavily in one other area of work, whether it's a specific industry experience, a specific job functional skill set experience outside of engineering. Here are some examples of software engineering roles. And on the next slide, we'll show you, again, what an entry-level engineering role looks like, where we're seeing, again, an intent to have a degree in CS. I imagine that's going to change a little bit, but not fast enough for the current cohort of students. So I would still
Mhm.
generally encourage people to pursue degrees in software engineering if they intend to sort of go that pathway. But we're seeing this combination of analytical skills and communication skills. And then this sort of like problem solving concept, which I think is really, really important in any engineering role because as I'm learning as a coder without coding, a lot of coding is about hitting bugs and finding your way around those bugs and learning how to solve those problems on your own. I covered a lot very quickly there. Any questions on any of these three discrete pathways or the sort of jobs that we covered? I'll pause on that. And if there are students in the classroom that also had questions, I'm happy to answer those via the teacher too.
Don't be shy.
All right, we can keep moving on to
Okay.
the AI of it all, which is something, oh, there's one more slide here, cross-disciplinary overlap. So we were talking a little bit about this, but as you were sort of seeing, there's a lot of similar skills required to pursue any one of these three areas within that sort of computational thinking, computer science, data analytics, or cybersecurity framework. That's really a good thing. Versatility is key in this ever-changing, dynamic, and fluid world. These are the skills that are sort of overlapping. Interest in engineering, experience in one computer science language, the computational thinking concepts. That's how do you take a problem and break it down into small discrete steps and then follow those steps in order to achieve an outcome that you predict and are able to see at the other side. That's the sort of mindset that's becoming really important. Teamwork skills, because we still need humans to work with other humans, and communication skills, which arguably matter more than ever. Okay. So how does AI impact all of this? Well, artificial intelligence is completely transforming the way that we learn and the way that we work. I don't need to tell you all of this. I'm sure you're hearing it from every direction right now. What I'm seeing on the edge of where I sit, which is as a founder of an AI forward company, in an application that uses AI that I coded myself without actually coding, I'm sort of seeing the world in a way that probably will exist in a couple of years down the road. So, if this is a useful indication of what's happening right now, we're starting to see the new builders in technology conceptualize applications in partnership with AI as a tool every step of the way. This is not something that is used in these little isolated buckets for individual shallow needs. It's like a deep embedded framework that's touching every aspect of the business. An AI fluent company today is one that is using AI in every part of their business applications. They're using it to help run their teams, to help send their emails, to help design their product strategies, to help design their marketing strategies, to help communicate with customers, to help decide their go to market. Every single part of it is now bringing in these AI toolings into that framework. And in that way, it's becoming this sort of second mind for the knowledge worker. And that's both exciting and scary. I'm not going to lie. But I do want to call out that this is a really interesting moment that's happening, because what we're seeing on the industry side is that for the first time, maybe since the internet itself was created, the entire professional workforce is going through a collective upskilling event. Everyone who works with a computer is asking the question, how might I do my job better, faster, more easily with AI? And everyone is having a different answer to that question right now. So it's impossible for me or Brian to say what the world is going to look like, even when students here on this call today graduate, because we don't know. But what we do know is that this fluency is mattering more so than ever before. So the best thing that we're recommending is to start to encourage structured experimentation wherever possible. And I think structured means there's some guidance and there are some boundaries. And experimentation means some things are going to work and some things aren't going to work. And structured also means under the guidance and supervision of a teacher, mentor, facilitator, industry partner, et cetera. And I think the more at bats an individual has to practice and sort of free play with these tools from earlier on, the more equipped you and your students will be to have these skills needed for the workforce. Um, and the last thing I'll add here is this last note around building software is becoming so common now that it's almost making all these other sort of softer business skills more important than ever before. It used to be that you only had to be able to build an app with code, and then someone else would sort of help you direct the product for that, or come up with the go-to-market strategy, or come up with the other components. And now, because it's becoming so accessible to create these applications in minutes, in hours rather than weeks, and in weeks rather than years, it's becoming faster and easier. So it's really begging the question, like, what else can we do? How else can we lean into those like individual unique niches that we all have? And I think this is actually a really exciting moment, because it doesn't mean you have to ignore your passion. It means you have to lean into that passion. So I would think of this less about it's AI or that, and it's more about AI and that. So if you are working with students who love video games and who love animation or who love fashion
Mhm.
or who love art, they no longer have to choose. Do I choose the job that's the software job that's going to make me money, or do I choose the thing that's bringing me like joy in my heart? I think that the answer what we're starting to see is it's both of those things. How do I use these software skills and bring in my interest with art? How do I use this new technology in service of these other things that I really enjoy? And we're starting to see more of these creative combinations happen. And my hope is that we're going to see even more of that in the years ahead. Any questions on that concept? All right, we have one more slide on this topic. You guys are very quiet, so I hope this is useful.
Well, can I add one more addition to this
Yeah.
portion, which actually it might be in the next slide. So I hope I'm not bearing like uh, letting people know in advance. But the other thing that where we are seeing is, as Bethany mentioned, we can't predict what's going to happen in the future. We don't know how this is going to be affecting entry level roles. We know that this will be affecting not just roles, but everything in context. But what some of the things that we're seeing already, and we are going to be releasing some reports this year in terms of updated things related to jobs and technology, is more and more code bases at tech companies are being developed either in combination with AI or being developed by AI, which means, as Bethany mentioned, there's going to be a real need for adding additional skill sets and thinking about computational thinking broadly across students. Some of the things that we've been able to do that we'll go into a little bit later is adding digital skills, knowing that like what we do is not in a vacuum. Whether it's something like sort of talking about a program that we do with the School of Food and Finance, we work with a number of culinary students as they're thinking about building their careers in culinary. We connect them with the company Grubhub and thinking about how am I thinking what kind of restaurant would like to build in my neighborhood, which means that they have to think about this in sort of a computational thinking way of what does the data say in my neighborhood about needs? How do I price and structure these things? It's kind of really important that we're like adding additional context to those skills and computational thinking as we're coming to a place that's kind of the unknown for us. So just wanted to add a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian. The other reason why I think it's really empowering is it's really, we've been saying in the tech industry, I think over optimistically for many years that technology is democratizing access to everyone. But obviously what we really know is it's democratizing access to people who are in the know that that's possible. And that's in itself a really biased and skewed example. I think AI is another opportunity for like a vastly democratizing event. And personally speaking, I've worked in the tech sector for 15 years, but I have a journalism degree. I do not have a computer science degree, and I have felt like an inferior persona in this industry for 15 years because I haven't been able to have the agency myself to do the coding work that creates the value in this space. And that is completely changing right now. So the fact that someone like me, for the first time, is able to conceptualize an idea and then build that myself is actually going to change what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to be a technologist. And it's going to open up this entirely new demographic of people who are building and putting things online. And I think that's really exciting for a lot of the students on this in this world.
I think there's
So
one
just
question in the chat.
Oh, great. Is prompt engineering something being taught now or part of training at these companies? Yes. Um, every company that I'm talking to right now is going through their own version of what do we need to be doing to train employees. And frankly, every company is as confused as the next company right now. And I think I'm saying this because that's to say there's no clear answer to this. And if you think schools are scrambling to figure out how to use AI, companies are also scrambling to figure out how to use AI. But there's absolutely training happening up and down the stack. So given that things are changing so fast, hard skills are sort of becoming less certain than what I'm calling this like adaptive learning mindset. So encouraging critical thinking, experiential based learning, like getting your hands deep into problems, practicing with real tools, seeing what works and what doesn't work, pattern recognition and being able to tell what good versus great looks like. These are all things that are really, really helpful in this AI era. But also having robust core frameworks is essential. You can use AI to build an app without coding right now, but it's a lot better if you have even one or two classes of what foundational architecture looks like for good programming setup and design and databases. So if you can imagine what those like building blocks need to be, we need those strong foundations so that we can use AI to help build on top of these. And then again, you're hearing communication and problem solving.